Hello and welcome back to another gear review. Today I have an interesting one. Now I've seen this brand floating around the internet and it's gotten some very good reviews, but the main reason I've stayed away from it is because most of their models are very similar to other types of guitars out there, things that I'm not necessarily seeking after, and even though they are very good for the price, it's not anything that I'm necessarily seeking or has stuck out to me until I saw this one. Now I'm very excited to dig into this, and believe it or not, in this here narrow package happens to be a full-size guitar. So without further ado, let's open it up and let's dig into what's inside of here. What's in the box? An even smaller box. And as you may see, this is a Donner. This is the Donner Hush I. Now let's take a look and see what makes this so much different. So now right away, what comes in the box? We get this little, what looks like a violin case. Now, as I said, believe it or not, this is a full-size guitar. So this guitar here comes with a very unique twist on this. So this is a travel-size guitar, but this travel-size guitar happens to be a miniature silent acoustic. Now obviously it's not in tune right now, but you see it is a full scale. It is just made to be able to travel, take apart, and if I do say so myself, this is a very nice padded case. I was a little concerned with the idea of a padded case, but inside this padded case comes this little bag that has my wings. Got all my little case goodies, a little cleaning cloth, and the user manual, which, let's be honest, it's a guitar. I won't necessarily need that user manual. So we'll get to putting those wings on, but for now, let's take a look. What else comes in the box is this little tuner here. Looks like a clip-on tuner. We'll see how well that works here in a minute. And this little case here which has some Donner headphones. Now, I don't expect too much from these headphones, but it is a nice thing to have thrown in there as a whole kit for those who are, just starting out. You get everything in one package. So with that, I'm going to get this battery in here. I'm going to get her tuned up, and we'll be back in a minute once I've got it all nice and set up. Alright, so we got her all tuned up and hooked up. So as you can see in this little bag here, they do provide these little wire arms to make it feel like a regular traditional guitar. Now, also in that bag is included a few starter picks. They gave you a few different sizes here. So a wider one, a little bit of a more medium size, and then a small like jazz style pick, which is great. I will say up front, the tuner works. It's not bad. It's not the best tuner in the world. I would definitely prefer to use a Snark, or in my case, my Soundbrenner here, which is much more accurate, which I didn't end up doing after I used this. Anyway, it got you close enough for a starter pack. It's not the worst thing in the world to get up and start working. They do include a battery with it, so this is battery powered in the back here. The first thing I noticed here is that it's pretty well put together. There is really no fret spout on the end, no sharp frets, so at least in my experience here, you could just pick up and play. It doesn't seem like there's too many high frets. I will need to obviously go back through and give this a setup, which I will do before I do a full demo, but it feels pretty nice for the get-go. The first thing I did notice when I was putting this little wire thing together here is that this is set up with a bolt through these little arms here, and they do send you the bolts plus extra, which is great because most of those you get just enough, and sometimes you're missing one and you can't find it. The one thing they could have done is they did include this little Allen key here, which doesn't seem to be quite the right size, but they also send you a whole nother Allen key, which seems a little odd if you have one in the guitar that you need another one. But this does also work for these tuning machines here. Now I do like the style of these tuning keys. The main thing I did notice when I was tuning these up is these are pretty touchy, so when you're tightening them, it's very easy to go too far by just a little bit, and then when you back off, it's almost like it relieves the tension and it just kind of drops. So it's really finicky, and I found it much easier to use the actual Allen key with it instead, and I was able to get a much more accurate tuning that way. But doing this by hand, these knurls aren't really deep enough. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. There are knurls there, but there's not really a whole lot of grip to them. So those knurls could definitely be deeper, and they could be in more of an X shape, which would give you more grip to it. This is just straight up and down lines. The mahogany looks nice. They do also offer this in maple, and I also saw on their website that cherry is also another option, which I thought would have been pretty snazzy, but I didn't see that available when I purchased it. What really drew me to this is very much like the silent guitar from Yamaha, but at a huge fraction of the cost. So this only cost me just shy of about $300. It was close to that with shipping, and that's a lot of bang for your buck, assuming this is going to be a great guitar like those silent guitars are. Now again, I'm going to have to do some playing around first before I make a complete assumption on this, but so far I'm pretty impressed. The reason why this stuck out to me, not only being a silent guitar like it is that some of the specs that are on this thing just seemed way too good for the price point. When I first looked at the guitar, the first thing that stuck out to me was that this has a multi-contour neck. So I don't know how much you can catch with this little tag on here, but so it is flat here on this end where your thumb sits, but then it tapers like this, and then that gradually tapers out as you come down, and then it's more of a regularly rounded, so that that flat point then shifts from over here to down here on this side, which I think for playing and doing any upper fretwork is actually much smoother. And that is a custom feature that I would not assume a low-end guitar to offer. I mean, a lot of custom companies tend to charge $100, $150 plus just to do something like that. But I guess with CNCs nowadays, they're able to produce something like this pretty easily. But I found that alone as a feature on it pretty impressive. And I mean, honestly, it feels pretty good. Now, obviously out the get-go, I noticed that my action is pretty high here, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust that, and I'm going to play around with it for a little bit, and we'll give her a full test and demo, and then I will let you know what I liked, what I didn't like, and we'll check out the headphones and see how good those work. You know, I'm looking at this from a, you know, get up and go kind of standpoint, and so far I'm pretty impressed. I think that this has a lot of potential. Now, obviously being a guitar player and a luthier for as long as I have, you have to understand that even though someone gets really lucky and has a really good, frets and setup and no sprout or anything, doesn't mean that's always going to be the case. There is always going to be maintenance with almost anything, be it tools or whatnot, that's going to have some setup before you play it. This is why I'm going to take it away and do the setup and then come back and finish this review, is because even though these frets are great and I don't see any problem with it and I don't see any bad fret sprout, there's no high spots, the action is still a little higher than I'd like it, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that myself. Before I let you go, I'm going to plug this in quick. We're going to see how that sounds right off the bat, and then I'm going to do a setup and do an actual demo. Yeah, I would say the pickup sounds pretty good. It's nice and loud. I don't have the volume up a whole lot, so, I mean, we do have a volume up here. I can turn on a phaser. We do have some customizability with controls. I can mess with the lows and the highs. So if you want to do more bass, you can definitely turn up the bass here. And same with the highs. You can turn up the highs and turn down the bass if you want to have that more brighter tone to it, which is a nice feature. But I'm going to go ahead. We're going to give this a setup. I'm going to plug the headphones in off camera because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you're not going to be able to hear those. So I will give those a test myself just to see if they're worth anything. I don't necessarily have high hopes for them because, they're not studio headphones. And honestly, I'm going to use my noise canceling studio headphones if I'm going to plug into it anyway. But, just to see, because they do offer it in this nice little carrying case that does fit very well in the case itself. See whether they're worth it, if they sound good. But I will let you know when we come back. Alright, so let's talk about this. Now, the only part of the setup that I did here, I didn't mess with the truss rod at all, I didn't mess with the frets at all. I just lowered the saddle about a millimeter or two. Now, it's not that it wasn't playable the way it was. It was definitely playable out of the box. It just had a bit higher of an action than I like to play with. But now that I was able to take the saddle down, it is much closer to a place that I like it. And you can see that there is very minimal space between there, which is how I like to play it. So now let's talk about some of this, now that I've had a little bit to sit and play with it and get a good feel about it. I am very impressed with this guitar. Now, obviously, when you buy budget guitars, there is a stigma that it's cheap, so it's going to be cheap. And I was definitely impressed with a lot of things. Now, there is still some things that definitely are reminiscent with that stereotype. It's nothing that's detrimental to the guitar itself. Like I said, what mainly brought me to this was that most of what they sell was budget models like Les Pauls and Telecasters and Stratocasters, which I'm at a point in my playing that if I was to look for one of those, I would look for the real thing. And I don't necessarily look for those personally. Not that they're going to be bad instruments. I've seen many reviews where people have really enjoyed those instruments, and that's great for them, but I'm at a point where I am more seeking innovation, something different. And this definitely stood out to be something different. Now, I have played a silent guitar before. I have played the Yamaha one, plus I also have one that was made to be like the Yamaha one. And I do really enjoy that guitar a lot. The problem with the Yamaha ones in particular is that the price range is quite high. The last time I looked at one, they were around $800-900 for one, and it's a bit of a steep price for somebody to get into. What really appealed to me for this was the features that they were offering for the price range that they were in, and that they gave you a whole kit to go along with it. So this is a great option for beginners, because not only is it set up for a kit for beginners, but it is an exceptional guitar for the price range. First and foremost, it has a custom contour neck. So it thin taper here at the bottom, and then it goes thicker for your thumb to rest on it. So because you're going to be playing more up in the rhythm range when you're lower down at the neck, primarily. Got a little friend joining me. And then as you go down, it goes from here to here, so that your slim taper is up at the upper half of your neck, and then it's thicker on the lower half, because you're going to primarily be soloing when you're up toward the upper part of the neck or playing the higher frets. So I have found that to be super comfortable, and I really enjoy that neck profile, and honestly, I may adapt it in some of my builds because I like it that much. Which is something you don't see on this budget range model, which made this all the more appealing to me. So what do we got here? This is solid mahogany. As I said before, they do offer a maple and a cherry version. I just like the mahogany. Mahogany is tried and true. It's got a simple ABS saddle and nut. The tuning keys, they reminded me a lot of the Hipshot ones, but upon closer inspection, they're not. These are just a cheap, almost classical style, because it's an open gear and one bar across. They're okay. They work. I personally would want to find an option of replacing them, just me being me. But they work. They're not the worst things in the world. I have noticed one quality control issue with this, and that is that the ferrules are not completely pressed in, which isn't a huge issue, but they're not completely pressed in. Something that was just overlooked. And honestly, if that's the one thing that's overlooked, it's not that bad at all.
Hello there.
As you can see, I have a parrot now. These metal arms worry me a little bit, and I'll tell you why. This one here has 2 posts, so this one is fine here, and it's really not the one I'm going to be using primarily. You know, when I'm playing, obviously it gives me a little bit of a rest, but it doesn't need to be there, and I can play it just fine. What really worries me is this bottom one is just a single bar, and it's just a single set screw, and you can see that even though I've got it tightened down all the way, there's still some play in it. I would have loved to see, you know, just another arm here. It doesn't even have to have a bolt in it, because this one is very stable, and there's only one bolt in this one here, and it just sits in the body here. But that makes it so much more stable, whereas this just kind of flops around, and I can see that stripping out because there's no barrier of contact in the wood here, so it's just wood that this is going through, and then it's threading into this bar. So all you're really doing is, I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but you're knocking that nut back and forth into the mahogany here, which to me just seems like the design process could have gone a little better there. It does function, it works, it will sit, and I can play it just fine that way, and there's not really an issue aside from it just rocking back and forth. Now what I do like is their minimalist approach. Obviously it's not as simple as clicking these things in and out, because you still have to take a nut out, but everything is designed with traveling in mind. So these come out, they have a specific pocket in this bag here. So this front pocket is designed to fit, you know, all of your accessories plus the little bar, and then there's a pocket on the inside here that is just behind where the guitar sits, and that's where the upper arm sits. The arms have their own separate bags, and your guitar strap doubles as the strap for your case, which I thought was, I mean, it's a little thing, but it's cool. The only downside to that is that these clips bang into the guitar, so I can already see some marring on the back here just from this banging into it. It is a little unfortunate, but the body itself has a small radius on the back here, so it's rounded to sit up against you, and that, I believe, just looking at this design, was designed with the bar in mind here, because the bar is so thin so that when you're sitting it's comfortable against your body. Now what I'd really like to do with this thing, now that I've looked into it and I've pulled the saddle out and lowered it, is that this is just a simple piezo pickup. It actually sounds pretty good. I really like the sounds of it. I did try the headphones, and whereas they're not necessarily my style, they actually don't sound bad. The way they're shaped, they sit pretty nicely on the inner part of your ear. It's not a style of headphone that I ever really cared for, but they are pretty stable. I did tug on them, they don't come out, and they sound pretty good. You just got to be aware that they're pretty loud when you first plug them in, so you really have to back off the volume when you're playing with the headphones. Whereas when I was in the amp here, I have this volume almost all the way up. But the piezo pickup is nice. What I'd really like to do in the long run, because I already have a steel string silent guitar, I actually think I might want to throw nylon strings on this one and see how that goes. I really wish they had offered a nylon string option, because I would have picked that one up just because I have so many steel strings. But, you know, that regardless, I mean, even unplugged, it's still decently loud, but not too loud to annoy your family while you're playing at night, which is great. I would say that even though this body is tiny, it's louder than some of my electrics unplugged, which, I mean, I have even a semi-hollow over here, and it's about as loud as that one, which is great. So I don't always need to pop in the headphones. It seems like a lot to carry around, which obviously the bag is set up to carry all that stuff. But it's nice to know that this is loud enough where you don't necessarily need to plug in. So with that, I would give it a review 1 out of 10. I would say that I would give this 9.5. Obviously, no, don't go 10 because you want them to strive for something, but given the budget and everything that it includes, and you basically can get up and go, I'm just thoroughly impressed with this design, and I can't believe that it costs what it does. I paid around $280 for this. I don't feel like a guitar at $280 should have all these features. It's just not common. There's a stigma for a reason. So, would I recommend it? I would highly recommend it for anybody starting out. Not only is it a great guitar, but you get everything to get up and going. You get the tuner, you get the headphones, you get your strap, you get your case, and all on a budget. And when you're learning, one of the biggest hurdles I've found with people who are just learning is the embarrassment of playing, because you know you're not good, and you don't want people to hear you not good. So I think that this hits all those nails on the head, where it's a comfortable guitar that they can start playing, and it's not going to feel bad to play, which is another reason why I found people end up giving up playing, is because the guitar they have is just not comfortable. And that happens a lot when you're buying cheap guitars that aren't set up properly, that you don't know enough about. Whereas coming right out of the package, I really didn't have to do much to this guitar. So you can basically pull it up, tune it up, and you're good to go. So with that, enough yakking for me. This is a great overall instrument. I'm very happy with it. I will be playing the junk out of this. And with that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one. I have some more products coming in too that we're going to do some reviews on. So with that, we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Hey, bud. Hey. Oh no! You fell!